Hi everyone, thank you for coming. I'm Luke Twomey, I'm the CEO of the WA Marine Science Institution. I've been in this role for about 7 years now, so I'm pretty comfortable where I am and with the ability to be able to talk to you about what we are and what we do. So look, WAMSI's been going for quite a long time now, for almost 20 years, and we're a partnership of marine science providers. So if you look at the list of logos there, we've got the four major universities, four state-funded universities. We've got the Australian Institute of Marine Science, WA Museum, Chem Centre, and then we've got three state government departments. So Department of Water Environmental Regulation, DPIRD, which is fisheries, and also DBCA. When you look at all of those logos, it broadly covers the full complement of marine science that's done in the state in WA. So we've got really good access to marine scientists, basically. We're funded by JETSI, so Department of Jobs, Tourism, Science and Innovation. And JETSI have put us together so that we can be basically a collaboration. We can bring that strength of all of our partners together to do a couple of different things. One of those, the key purpose is to build our scientific knowledge of WA's marine estate so that it can enable better decision making for the state government. So our little logo is better science for better decisions. So it's about bringing new information into the state government so that when they're doing things like planning for a marine park or making decisions about new infrastructure that needs to go in the marine environment, like a port, or oil and gas developments, or water corporation putting in new facilities to do desalination or discharge water into the ocean. They can make more informed decisions about the types of things that might be in that environment that could be impacted by those activities. Or it could help just to plan how we better manage those things into the future. So, like I said before, we've been around since 2006, and we've done a bunch of really big strategic marine science programs. So, good example of that is we've done major programs up on Ningaloo and in the Kimberley, and they've been big, like $25–30 million research programs that are very expensive, but they encompass all of those partners. And often the expense is around logistics and getting the marine scientists into the field. Those projects are often in remote places, so it's quite expensive to get people up, get them into accommodation, set up scientific infrastructure in those areas, and then implement those programs. So they're kind of eye-wateringly expensive programs, but they bring in really important information, as I said before, for things like marine park planning. So the Kimberley Marine Research Program, for instance, was around understanding the baseline information. So really just getting an understanding of what's there in terms of the benthic habitats, so the seagrasses and the corals and the I guess the foundational units that support the marine ecosystems in that area, and then better understanding the plants and animals that are interacting in those spaces. So things like turtles or dugongs or fish or crocodiles and sharks, all of those wonderful things as well. So the current programs that we're running at the moment, we're doing the WAMSI Westport Marine Science Program, which is a baseline program in Cockburn Sound to assist the state with a great big port project. So it's actually moving container trade from Fremantle down to Kwinana. And the whole purpose of that is because Fremantle Port's been constrained now and it needs to grow because our population's growing. They've run out of space, so they're going to shift it down the road to Kwinana and really link it in with that major heavy industry area down there. So we've done a huge amount of new baseline work in there to really understand what's going on. I'll talk a little bit more about that in a moment. Another area that we looked at is the Mardi Salt Offset Program, which is a program on the Pilbara coast, where there's been lots of new projects, lots of mines and salt fields proposed into the future. And it's an area of the coast that we don't have a great deal of scientific information. So again, we've gone out there to collect baseline information about the coast and the habitats and the way that the system is productive and the types of fish that are in the system and things like that. And another area that we've been really focused on lately is on Exmouth Gulf. Exmouth Gulf is seeing a lot of changes with population growth, a lot of new pressures coming into the area, potential ports coming in. We've got a huge US military presence in the community as well. There are issues around the water catchment drying up and not being enough water to support the community. And all of those things are putting enormous pressure on Exmouth Gulf and the associated ecosystem. So yeah, we do, I guess, science, but it's applied science to help us with that decision making going forwards. In terms of emerging issues in marine science, there's a bunch of key, I guess, projects and sectors that need marine science information to help them plan for emerging issues. One of those areas is around renewable energy resources and an understanding that offshore energy, and particularly renewable energy through things like big wind farms, are a really good source of renewable energies that could and probably will have a really big part of the energy mix kind of going into the future. An area of the Bunbury coast has been marked by the Commonwealth as a potential site for renewable energy. And so, you know, that's one of those areas that could expand into the future and have a bunch of windmills out at sea. So that's one of the areas that we might get involved in into the future. Another emerging issue is around desalination. So with our drying climate and climate change, we've seen that we rely less and less on fresh water from rainfall and the catchment area and big reservoirs, and more into desalination. And we're starting to see lots of coastal and regional areas look at desalination as a way of providing fresh water into the communities. It comes with a suite of different issues, and one of those things is when you pull the fresh water out, you're left with a really salty brine solution, and that's often put back into the marine environment, and it can cause problems with basically stratification of the water. It can act almost like as a poison to the benthic communities, and it can kill areas of seagrass and things like that. So they've got to be very careful in the way that they discharge that brine solution. Seagrass restoration is a really big issue in WA. We've lost a lot of seagrass meadows through poor human practices. So in areas like Coburn Sound, where we've really abused that environment for many decades, had a lot of point source pollution into the system back in the 50s, 60s and 70s and into the 80s. A lot of diffuse nutrients and things like that coming into the system and really changed the ecosystem, and that's resulted in a lot of seagrass loss. So Coburn Sound's lost about 80% of the seagrass meadows in that system. So there's great need to restore the seagrass, because seagrass is such an important fundamental building block for all of the ecosystems on our coastline. So if we can put the seagrass back, we can then bring back some of that ecology into the system. So things like the food chain that supports snapper or might support little penguins or sea lions, or some of those things that we really value into the system. Carbon sequestration is a really big emerging issue for marine science. So the ocean sequesters probably between 50 and 70% of the carbon that we release into the atmosphere. So it's incredibly important that we really understand that well and that we augment that carbon sequestration as much as we can to pull out the carbon from the atmosphere. Climate change is a massive issue for us, and marine heat waves. We've just seen another really big heat wave off our coast over the last few months, and that can have massive impacts to our system. So in the past, we've seen big heat waves wipe out seagrass meadows, and that has knock-on effects to things like dugongs or the species that require those seagrass meadows. Aquaculture is an emerging area for Western Australia as well. We're seeing more and more aquaculture as our populations grow. A lot of groups looking at the ocean to support fish protein. So we need to really do that in a controlled and managed way going into the future. I think you might have seen headlines at the moment around Tasmania and the salmon farms on that part of the coast, causing some really major ecosystem problems in that area of the world. So if you do really intensive aquaculture, you can have major environmental consequences. So we've got to find the right balance so that we can feed our growing population and not destroy the marine ecosystem in the same time. Marine tourism is really big as well, making sure that we have a light footprint, and so that we can take tourists out, have the economic stimulus associated with tourism, but have a light footprint on the marine space. And finally, cumulative impact. And cumulative impact is really an emerging area in marine science, which is looking at not just the impacts of one particular project, but how humans are impacting in a cumulative way across a region. So again, Coburn Sound's a great example of that, where you've got 50 different industries working in a very small area, and each one of those has a small impact. But if you add them all up together, you have this really large cumulative impact. And we're not very good at thinking about how to manage that. We typically only focus on those single impacts, but it would be much smarter if we were able to look at the cumulative impact and plan our regions out with more thought around that. One of the things that WAMSI does is we do a lot of education and we do a lot of community outreach and try to put marine science into areas where we can take those really complex science ideas and make them more digestible and palatable to the community. So doing quite a lot of work pushing that material out. And this is an example of some of the marine science news that we've been putting out recently, particularly around marine heat waves and the warming events that we've had associated with the tropical cyclones. You can see there's the salmon article there that I was just talking about, and other just interesting bits and pieces that come across, and we push that out and make sure that the community is made aware of it. As we said before, marine heat waves is pretty major in Western Australia. It's something that we're expecting to increase into the future with climate change. And we've got quite a large research program going at the moment about predicting future marine heat waves, which we're hoping will lead to a way for scientists to improve our knowledge and potentially build some practical tools of guessing where they're going to happen next, and hopefully lead into things like making the system more resilient by planting corals that are more temperature resistant or seagrass meadows that are more resistant. And so that when we do restoration programs, we're doing it with the future in mind and warmer oceans in mind, so that those ecosystems are more resilient and more likely to survive into the future. We've been doing a really fantastic outreach piece with high schools, which we've been calling Thinking Blue. So it's an outreach program with many of the wonderful scientists that we have within WAMSI. So we can reach out to our partners, we invite them to come in, and then the individual scientists will come in and they'll give a presentation to school students hosted by the school, and we'll record that information and make it available to the different groups. So this slide just gives you a little bit of a snapshot of some of the scientists that we've already had come in and present and give their unique particular project or sector's view of the science that they're doing. It is offered to students in their final year of high school. It's really interactive, so the scientists and the students have the ability to interact and have questions. And as said before, we've had lots of different talks around seagrass restoration, artificial reefs, marine pollutants like plastics in the marine environment, things like that. Had some great discussions about underwater noise and noise pollution and the impacts on marine plants and animals. And as I said before, we make all of that information available in our YouTube channel. So Shannon Dee's a good example of one of the scientists that did a really good talk on the characteristics of coral communities. She's a postdoctoral research, so really early in her career, and she was presenting some of that information, which was fantastic. So we're going to do Thinking Blue again in 2025 in terms 2 and 3. We're hoping to open it up to more schools, have a good mix of ATAR and non-ATAR topics. The scientists absolutely love doing this stuff. They love talking about what they do. They are the world leaders and experts in their area, and they are really good at communicating at the right level of this information. So we've got access to hundreds of scientists. So really, if you've got particular pet topics that you'd like us to tackle, please reach out to us, and we'd love to keep pushing the scientists your way. We're producing some teachers' guide and workshops to supplement the presentations. And one of the products that we've been building most recently is a WA threatened species book. So that information will be released a little bit later in this year. Ian Parnham was one of those scientists that was just really passionate, does such a wonderful job of taking really complex science and distilling it down and making it easy to understand. He does some wonderful stuff where he's got these special hydrophones that can listen to underwater noise and pick out particular patterns that might be whales with their whale songs. Then you might see the shrimps that are snapping and making noise underwater. You can hear vessels and submarines and various craft coming past. So he did a wonderful job of explaining that stuff and getting students really interested and excited about marine science. So look, our offer to you guys is to get involved. We'd love more schools to host sessions, bring up ideas and suggest some topics that you'd like us to cover. Really get the students to get enthusiastic and get involved, and then make this a resource that's available to more and more schools. And really, for me, I would love to see more West Australian content and Western Australian marine science being available to those students and having built into the curriculum, rather than seeing Eastern States examples or other international examples. We are so lucky in Western Australia to have such a unique, biodiverse, incredible marine environment and so many good examples. And really, we have a very high weight of incredibly good scientists in Western Australia as well. And they are a resource that we just want you to tap into, and they are willing and able to be tapped into as well. So this is my last slide, and then I'll take it off this and take any questions. But yeah, please, we'd be happy to put you onto our mail out list. Please jump in and follow us on social media. In fact, that's a really good way to not only get involved in the Thinking Blue part of it, but actually to see what's topical for the scientists and what the scientists are talking about at any time. They tend to do a really good job of promoting their own material through those socials as well. So I'm going to stop sharing and see if you guys have got any questions for me. And if you don't, I'm happy to let you go early and get on with your afternoon.
Yeah, no questions from me. But Luke, just wanted to say thanks for putting this on, mate. Regardless of how many people showed up, we really appreciate the effort that you put into the area. So thanks for that a lot.
Oh, thanks, Matt. Yeah, look, we're really passionate about it. If we can, I guess, get the interest of a handful of students and get them to go down this path, it's fantastic because it opens lots and lots of different career doors, whether, it's marine consulting, it might be working for government departments, it could be as a marine scientist, or it might even be as a ranger. There's just so many different careers these days and paths in this field, and it's a really good, balanced, diverse field to be involved in as well. So we're pretty passionate about it, and we just like to get others involved as well. Cool. Well, I might leave it there, unless I see Zoe, you've just taken your microphone, put your microphone on.
I was just going to say a huge thank you as well. I really, really
Thanks,
appreciate it. I've just been frantically taking some notes. That's what I've been doing.
Cool. Well, look, any of your ideas, we'd be really welcome to take on. I don't know if there's more that we can do about getting WA Marine Science into the curriculum. That'd be fantastic as well. We have such vast resources in terms of images and information that we can make available as well. So just reach out.
It'd be some data sets would be cool.
Oh, we've got plenty of that. Yeah.
That's an area that I definitely would love for some inspiration.
Yeah, okay. Well, look, that's something that we could do pretty easily. I mean, the scientists could make that available. So the WAMSI Westport stuff that we've been doing recently has brought in data from, things like snapper and snapper numbers and breeding cycles, all the way through to seagrass mapping. So, there's heaps of data around that. What was I thinking before? Oh, a really unique one off our coast here is things like seahorses. There's a bunch of seahorses and pipefish that live in Cockburn Sound and Swan River, and they're not found anywhere else. So it's really unique. And so there's some really nice little data sets showing when they're there and how many are there and things like that. So yeah, some of those data sets could be really interesting and fun for the students to look at.
Yeah, absolutely. You were talking about the 80% loss of seagrass meadows in Cockburn Sound.
Yep.
What impact is Westport having on the development and seagrass meadows in that space?
Yeah, we're actually hoping that it has a really positive benefit to it, because if you look at it in isolation, it's another infrastructure project, it's another impact. They'll take up space on the seafloor. They're trying their best to avoid seagrass communities, but they're going to have some impact. Plus, they'll have a dredging campaign, which is really tough on seagrasses and things like that for the period that they're dredging. But what they've said they want to do, and what they've been doing, is investing in the science, but they want to do a restoration program as well. So we're hoping that's the way, and they'll show the leadership to get a really big restoration program going so that we can start to go, in the future, we don't want to live with 20% of the seagrass anymore. We want to restore it to what it was. But we can only do that if we coordinate, and groups like Westport invest into that, and we get good science and good ways of doing almost industrial scale restoration going forwards. So we kind of flipped it on its head and said, yes, it's impacting it, but because it's such a big project, it has the ability to fund the science and undertake restoration in the system. So yeah, I reckon it's a positive.
Yeah. Cool. Thank you so much. I really appreciate you taking your afternoon up to come and run this for us.
Not at all.
That's amazing.
Yeah, thanks, so. Well, look, if there's no more questions, I'm happy to let you go and look, be available for if you do have questions down the line, or if you want to point any of your science teachers or marine science teachers our way. We'd be really happy to have a conversation and take on their ideas. So yeah, look, thank you for your time as well, because my wife's a teacher and I know that you have a lot on your plates all of the time. You're very busy people, and it's quite late in the day for you guys. So thanks very much for making the time.
Cheers, Luke. Thanks, mate.
Yep, thanks, Matt.
Thanks,
Really
Luke.
appreciate it. I'll speak to you soon. Thanks, Luke.
Okay, thanks, Zoe.
Bye.
Bye. Thanks, Todd.
Thanks, Luke. And you actually don't answer my question, because sometimes I do have people that get in contact looking for resources or other bits and pieces. So if you're happy, I'm going to start sending them your way, which is
Please
great.
do. Yeah, we'd be happy to. Yep.
Sounds
Thanks, Todd.
wonderful. Thank you. And thank you for that. It was actually really quite interesting. So thank you.
Good. Awesome. All right, mate. Thank you. All the best.